everyone. My name is Leanne Adegbonmire. I am a third-year PhD candidate at OISE, which is the Ontario Institute of Studies in Education, affiliated with the University of Toronto in Toronto, Canada, because I know that we are kind of an international panel this morning, which I'm looking forward to. So I'm going to present work that is ongoing and part of my own research and my own dissertation. So today, the presentation is called Building a Network of Support, Conversations with Teachers and School Leadership on the Introduction of a New Multilingual Digital Tool. That was for me. So just for today, I'm going to share a bit about the context, research objectives and questions, a little bit about the methodology, data collection, and preliminary findings. So just as some of you may know, that Canada is a very diverse country, a very linguistically diverse country, especially in Ontario and the bigger city centers. So, for example, the largest school board in Canada is Toronto District School Board, and they say that more than 50% of students in the school board speak a language other than English, other than the school language, so English or French at home. So there's very wide linguistic diversity in our classrooms, and though Toronto might be the highest across Canada, is still very linguistically diverse. I also just wanted to touch on STEM content. So if you were in the room before just seeing that periodic table, you would know that STEM is challenging. And for a lot of us linguists, we're intimidated by some of that STEM content, and many students in the middle grades lose interest in STEM subjects. Middle grades in Canada is around grades 6 to 9. In other contexts, it's different ages, but that is the reality. It's challenging. Another kind of area of context is curriculum expectations. In Canada, we don't have a federal Ministry of Education. Each province describes their own. They have their own curriculum, and because my research is situated, in Ontario, I'm going to touch on the Ontario curriculum a bit. And there's a section that says students must see themselves reflected in the curriculum. They have to feel engaged and empowered. And to make sure that this happens, educators in Ontario embrace culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy, which is, a loaded term, but here they kind of break it down a bit. So they say that all students learn in ways that are connected to background, language, family structure, and social or cultural identity. So there is an expectation that we are including cultural and linguistic elements. Just to dive a little bit in that deeper, the term culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy is a combination of culturally relevant pedagogy and culturally responsive, which are both two kinds of pedagogies that are from the United States, and they are really referring to a cultural divide, and a lot of it has to do with African Americans living in the U.S. And so from the perspective of the first two, it was a very Americanized context. But Kugler and West Burns, who were affiliated with OISE in Toronto, Canada, they combined it, and they said, no, it needs to be culturally relevant and responsive. And so that's a term that's still used in Ontario today. But I did want to mention that language is on the periphery of culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. In culturally relevant pedagogy, there was never language mentioned, and culturally responsive, it's a very tiny part. And so Ontario curriculum goes along with that. And, the language is only mentioned in the documents of supporting English language learners, but not necessarily in with that CRRP as the abbreviation. And I also wanted to bring up the concept of policy slippage, which is used more in political science, but it's the idea that, you know, those who are creating a policy are high up, higher level, and as people read and interpret and understand a policy, it gets humanized in a way, naturally. And so maybe the people that are affected by the policy have a filter through it. So I'm talking, you know, from the curriculum leaders to school board leaders to school principals, and then finally the teacher, which is who this pedagogy and these, you know, policies affect the most. So just to keep in mind that teachers are sometimes, you know, very separated. They might not even be aware of some policies, or if they are, it's been filtered through, you know, it might be a school policy that interpreted the provincial policy. So to just keep that in mind. And so the teachers are really at the center and at the heart of my research. You know, past research has shown that access to resources, professional training, and teacher beliefs all impact the behavior and practices of teachers in the classroom. So just a little bit more context. So there are curriculum expectations. Teachers have a lot of access to resources. I'm going to show you two resources today. One that is called Binogi, which is the multilingual digital tool that's mentioned in the title. And then I'm going to show or briefly mention some of the resources on our Escape website. But we also believe that teachers need more. I always say, like a missing puzzle piece. You know, sometimes it's not an issue of not the resources, but there are too many, or you can't find them, or you don't know how to use them. So teachers need additional support. The Escape projects that my research is situated within combines STEM learning, so math and science, with multilingual, plurilingual pedagogy through a tool called Binogi. And so Binogi has math and science, also geography videos. They're about 3 to 5 minutes long. They also have 3 quizzes with each video. And in Canada, it's aligned with the grade 6 to 9 curriculum. They have subtitles and audio in 14 plus languages, which is really cool. They have languages including Somali, Tigrinya, Arabic, Ukrainian, German, Russian, French, Spanish, English, of course. So it really is an equitable tool for math and science, just for those learners that have another language in their language repertoire, and for teachers who can't support students in diverse languages. So the Escape projects are a combination of 3 different projects that support teachers, families, and students. At the top, you can see one is titled Plurilingual Pedagogies and Digital Technologies to Support Learning in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. The bottom left there's one that's filling the learning gaps from the pandemic. That was a short-term grant. And then the project in the bottom right is where I'm really working in. So it's saying expanding web-based educational opportunities for Canadian students in STEM. So they are three funded projects by SHIRC and MyTax, and they all work together. So my research questions, I am looking at how do teachers, both ESL and STEM, respond to implementing a new multilingual digital resource. So in this case, it's called Binogi. To which extent might teachers' beliefs on education influence their reported use of Binogi? And third, how does a community of practice support educators in the implementation of the resource? So I'm using a background of a theoretical lens of sociocultural theory, kind of really focusing the most on distributed cognition. So the idea that cognition is shared over time, space, and different people. So teachers learning together, and then also through communities of practice, right? So where the goal is transmitting knowledge and a shared understanding. For data collection, we are looking at observations from onboarding sessions for teachers, and also we held community of practice meetings over a period of 2 years. first branded as escape cafes and the next as network meetings. We had at least one annual interview with each participating teacher, and then also some long answer surveys that were relevant and connected to the community of practice sessions. Here are the observation dates. So we had onboarding that started November 2020. Of course, this was still during the pandemic and school was mostly online or at least hybrid. And then we had escape cafes that started kind of in the spring of 2021, and they are running all the way through the end of this school year. And just to note that for onboarding sessions, we onboarded teachers per school, and for the escape cafes, we had all teachers participating from various schools, but anyone in the project.
5 minutes.
Awesome. So participants are 48 teachers from 10 different schools in 3 provinces. So from Ontario, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland, so all situated in Eastern Canada. And we had some teachers from public high schools, public elementary, a private bilingual elementary school, and then a public French immersion elementary school. And you could kind of see listed the roles that the teachers had. We also had a few vice principals joining the project, which was really exciting. And so just a little bit about preliminary results. So some teachers shared different reasons for joining the project, and a lot were keen to learn more about best practices and looking for new ideas from other teachers. And also, across the board, we saw all teachers were really aware of the needs of their students. Teachers were aware that especially math and science is challenging and that their multilingual students need support. And so it was really neat that many teachers, even with the exhaustion of the pandemic, still made time to join in and give their time to be part of the project. So looking at impact of the network meetings or the community of practice, so teachers shared students' reactions. One teacher shared that the student noted how her comprehension was significantly improved after hearing a video in Arabic, as it helped her make connections between prior learning and new concepts. So really drawing on the funds of knowledge that the students have, the knowledge they already have in another language, just need to translate it into English. They also shared about more of students' attitudes. One teacher in French immersion shared that, he had a Russian-speaking student who said, "Oh, I really want to learn Spanish." So in the video, he actually chose to watch Binogi and watch the content in Spanish and also French. So we noticed kind of a cycle that there was curiosity about others' languages, and then it led to students valuing the school language and also recognizing their home language, and different students' experiences on varying in that cycle. We also saw that, because I mentioned Binoki's in about 15 languages, but there's lots of languages that aren't on Binoki. For example, Mandarin, which you can see in the poster picture here. One teacher said they do presentations in a couple languages, and it took a lot of time, but they're teachers sharing experiences of students going beyond the languages on Binogi and inviting other languages, especially into the science and math classrooms. But mostly we love that teachers felt empowered. They, on the right is an example of a bilingual concept list that we created. So concepts in science in English on the left, you can add a concept in another language. The student used Arabic and then a picture. And so it went along with a video called The Animal Cell. So this is an example from one teacher, but on the left, there's a quote that a teacher used Book Creator, and students would add a picture and even record their voice in saying a concept in English and in their first language. So really going beyond the resources that we created and creating multimodal support in multimodal and multilingual for their students, which was really neat to see. Of course, with any research and new and exciting pedagogy or tool, there are some resistances. So we did have one teacher share that I don't have that much technology, right? Lack of the actual hardware, iPads, computers. So the teacher said they couldn't do individually and have the students watch. They would have to have them partner up. And then also we saw a lot of fatigue through students and through teachers because this research was during the pandemic. So one teacher shared that just like, it seems like this year, things are taking longer. I'm finding with my students, they struggle to solve problems. And yeah, so they need reminders to stay on task. So those are some of the resistances we saw, mostly lack of hardware, technology, or Wi-Fi at home. And then also just, exhaustion overall from teachers and students. So those are just some preliminary findings that I've seen. And so next steps are data analysis. I'm looking into coding and theming the data, and then of course, writing. So these are my references, and thank you so much for listening.